Hello guys, I'm back with another video today. I have Payday 2 running in the background. I am multitask. Alright, let's get started. So we're going to be watching Crowley-Youtube's Missing Killer. Nick Crowley is one of my most favorite
In the beautiful world of Black Desert.
documentary type, commentary artist type thing. I don't know how to explain what he does. He just like tells about true crime, all kinds.
Has a YouTube account.
All kinds of problems in the world. Everything. So when did this come out? Yesterday, okay.
Well, hi everybody, it's Mr. Anime
Hello
here.
everybody, welcome back to my channel, Ethan.
Hi, Elliot Roger. This is my last video, and all of us to come to this.
The gunman was a 22-year-old named L.i.L.
Uh-oh.
YouTube has always had a rich history when it comes to killers, which honestly isn't all that surprising. As of writing the script, this platform stands as the second largest social media site on the planet, with approximately 2.3 billion users, meaning that in theory, about 30% of the entire world's population has a YouTube account. With that being said, it's no wonder that truly disturbed individuals like Elliot Roger, Trey Sessler, or Ethan Crumley
charged with terrorism and first-degree murder
have found their way
Holy
to the
shit.
site at some point, as it's something that's unfortunately bound to happen
What's
with a
his
platform that Crumley.
charged with
About 30% of the entire world's population has a YouTube account. With that being said, it's no wonder that truly disturbed individuals like Elliot Roger, Trey Sessler, or Ethan Crumley
charged with terrorism and first-degree murder.
have found their way to the site at some point, as it's something that's unfortunately bound to happen with a platform this massive. But of all the confirmed YouTube killers that have gained infamy over the past 16 years, they all seem to share one similarity, that at this point they've either been captured by police or for whatever reason are no longer alive. And though their stories are still incredibly frightening, they fortunately no longer pose any sort of danger to the public, as they have in some way, shape, or form been accounted for. Well, that is all but one at least, as I can only think of a single example of a YouTube killer that after committing their heinous crime has essentially vanished off of the face of the earth. It's a man whose guilt was never in question, yet who is now walking freely among the general public, somewhere out there. And to make his story that much more shocking, it's a man who we're already familiar with.
Oh.
This video is sponsored by Audible, the leading provider of spoken word entertainment. Audible is a one-stop shop for audio entertainment, meaning not just audiobooks, but podcasts, theatrical performances, and guided wellness programs as well. And whether you're looking to be inspired, unwind, or simply be entertained, Audible is a great source for all of these needs. Is there something really convenient about being able to just listen to something, as opposed to having to take the time out of your busy life to fully read a book or watch a programmed. For me personally, I've used Audible to listen to Stephen King's The Stand, which I had on in the background when I was cooking, working, and especially when I was taking long drives. And fans of my channel will likely take a special interest in Audible's large selection of horror content. But other than that, they really have something for everyone. So if this sounds interesting to you, then go ahead and visit audible.com/Nick or text Nick to 500-500, which will not only get you a free 30-day trial, but you'll also receive 60% off your first 3 months. March 24th, 2014. An obscure home video is uploaded to YouTube with the title, "Cute Baby Laughing at Mommy Blowing Bubbles." The clip shows a mother holding her daughter as she blows gum bubbles, much to the enjoyment of the baby, who is laughing along, completely infatuated with the ordeal. This would be the first video published to a channel called Trent Paschal, which was run by a man of the same name, and pictured within this video was his wife Savannah, the mother of his 2 children, along with his daughter Mackenzie. From the outside looking in, Trent was clearly a man who cared deeply about his family, as many of the uploads on this channel centered around them, and this theme would continue on for years to come, as Trent would officially switch to a new channel called Big Money Tea, where he continued posting more family content, using the page as a way to document their memories together, along with occasionally showing off his RC cars and tech tips. His videos were fairly low quality, and the channel is about what you would typically expect from a dad who was just using the site to archive footage, which equated to the channel being as obscure.
I don't recognize this person. It must have been a video that was taken down or something, because I haven't seen anything
along
about
with
this.
occasionally
And
showing off.
It's someone we're familiar with, so I'm unsure if it was taken down before I started listening to Nick Crowley or not.
Off his RC cars and tech tips. His videos were fairly low quality, and the channel is about what you would typically expect from a dad who was just using the site to archive footage, which equated to the channel being as obscure as it gets, as none of his videos would ever gain any serious traction, or at least all but one. As on October 21st, 2020, Trent would post one of the more infamous videos in YouTube's recent history, which instantly turned this mundane channel into one of the site's darkest.
I'm recording this because I want my daughter to know that I love you, Paschal. I'm so sorry that I've done this. I want you to know that you mean everything. I didn't choose this. Your mom chose this. She's been cheating on me for a long time. I didn't do nothing wrong to her.
Much like his time had began on YouTube all the way back in 2014, this video, his final video, would also have his wife Savannah and daughter Mackenzie as its primary focus, with its title simply being his daughter's full name. Only, unlike his inaugural video, this clip was far more disturbing.
I put everything into this relationship. I have done nothing to your mom. I've never hit her. I've never hurt her. I've never called her names.
The video shows Trent as he calmly addresses his daughter, explaining that he had caught her mother cheating, and that he was sorry and heartbroken for what was to come. The video then ends abruptly as a noise can be heard in the background, leading him to run and hide in a dark room. Without context, it's hard to understand what is happening with this video, though naturally, many would assume that it was in regards to an impending divorce. However, the reality was far more bleak than that, as in the moments immediately following this video, Trent would approach Savannah with a loaded handgun, and in an instant, open fire, shooting her twice and eventually killing her. Trent would then go on to upload the video to YouTube shortly after, not as an apology for some divorce or anything like that, but as an apology to his son and daughter for killing their own mother. Making matters more disturbing, while Trent talks, he appears completely emotionless, and despite multiple attempts to fake cry, no tears ever fall.
I'm hurting so bad. I didn't do nothing wrong to her.
And all the while he's talking, he seems more focused on his hair and looks rather than anything else.
I'm like, why me? My hair's a mess and I look horrible. Oh, sorry. Take these off.
And instead, he seems totally void of any regret or empathy for the situation that was now unfolding, and the fact that he had now robbed his children of their mother, all because he thought she was cheating. And ultimately, he paints himself as the real victim, as their mother was the one that had supposedly cheated on him. The context of it all made this story almost unbearably upsetting, and it would only get worse as new details emerged. In the days following, it would be revealed that the noise heard while filming that had initially caused Trent to run and hide was, in all likelihood, Savannah herself arriving home.
You love me like your own.
And according to the police report, Trent was hidden within the shower of their bathroom when he ambushed Savannah and subsequently took her life, which, if you listen closely to the end of the video, you can clearly hear the rustling of shower curtains. Implying that this video was likely taken mere minutes before the murder took place, and he was seen and heard here on camera, hiding in preparation to carry this out. Given the shocking nature of this situation and this video, the story unsurprisingly became huge news across the world, and it even made a spot on YouTube's Darkest Channels 3. But if you had watched my video back when it was released, you'll likely be a bit confused as to why we're discussing it here. As if you remember, Trent's story had seemingly come to an absolute end the very day that he posted his last video.
Trust me, these miners' lives are going to change overnight when they get a taste of OxyContin.
Following breaking news from the Greensport area tonight, where a Harris County Sheriff's deputy shoots a man in front of a shopping center.
Investigators say the man shot was on the run, accused of killing his estranged wife.
We have a picture of the suspect in this case. That suspect is 48-year-old Trent Paschal.
Immediately following the slaying of Savannah, Trent would flee the scene, with police later tracking him down in a Walmart parking lot in Houston, Texas. There, Trent would refuse to comply with police demands, as he faced the officers with the murder weapon still in his hand, and in one fleeting moment of desperation, Trent would raise that weapon, causing police to immediately open fire. Thankfully, Trent was unable to discharge his weapon in time, and no officers would be injured, though Trent himself would be shot multiple times, leaving him in critical condition, though he would eventually go on to survive the ordeal, and after nearly 2 months of recovery, he would be back to full health and placed behind bars. This is not only where Trent's story ended on YouTube's Darkest Channels 3, but it also seemed to be the ending of his story in general, as he would likely spend the rest of his life in prison. And truthfully, out of all the cases I've covered on this channel, I probably would have picked this as one of the least likely to have any major updates, as it seemed about as open and shut as it gets. But little did I know that at the time of posting that video over a year ago, Trent Paschal wasn't even in prison. Following his recovery in December of 2020, Trent would then be turned over to authorities, with his guilt being completely certain, as other than his own incriminating video, and the fact that he had raised his weapon at police officers, he was also caught on camera by his neighbor immediately following the shooting, as he was talking on the phone to his aunt and confessing to everything he did. Plus, Savannah's own mother had been with her when she was shot, and had witnessed everything before escaping the scene. Trent was undoubtedly guilty of murder. Yet, despite this, and the disturbing behavior exhibited before and after his crime, the courts would make the bizarre decision to allow him to go out on bail. The decision was shocking and immediately met with criticism, as in Texas, bail can be denied to those who the court deemed to be a risk to the community. And due to the fact that Trent had obviously murdered his wife, pulled a gun on police officers, and the fact that his children were still out there, well, most considered him to be just that, a risk to the community. Yet for whatever reason, the judge didn't see it this way, with his bail being posted at $250,000. And despite the steep cost, his parents would scrape the money together and pay to have their son released, who, other than wearing an ankle monitor and showing up to regular court hearings, would be able to live a somewhat normal life until his inevitable conviction. By the end of December, Trent Paschal, the undeniable killer, would be released among the general public in Houston, Texas. The decision was immediately met with disagreement that would only grow over time, as within the span of just 2 months, Trent would find his way back into custody on 2 separate occasions, both of which for violating the terms of his bail, though in each instance, they allowed him to go back on bail. There was every opportunity to assure that this man never walked this earth freely again, and yet every time they chose to let him leave. And unsurprisingly, these dangerous decisions would eventually lead has a YouTube account. With that being said, it's no wonder that truly disturbed individuals like Elliot Rodger cheated on him. But if you had watched my video back when it was shocking and immediately met with criticism, other than wearing an ankle monitor and showing a call would be made to it would eventually lead to it, though in each instance they allowed him to go back on bail. There was every opportunity to assure that this man never walked this earth freely again, and yet every time they chose to let him leave. And unsurprisingly, these dangerous decisions would eventually lead to a devastating consequence. On April 13, 2021, a call would be made to authorities in Houston, Texas, stating that a used car had been stolen from a local dealership. The caller described how an anonymous man had entered the business and asked to drive a black Chevy Tahoe parked in the lot, to which the employee, a man named Jack Ford, happily obliged. As the two set out for their drive, Jack began to notice that the man was acting somewhat strange, calling his behavior suspicious, but not enough to stop the test early. However, out of the blue, the man would then turn sharply into a gas station parking lot and bring the car to a sudden stop. Once there, he would pull a knife from his pocket and order Jack out of the car before quickly speeding away. Police would later arrive on the scene, where, upon checking the CCTV footage from the gas station, they'd make the startling discovery that the suspect looked eerily similar to Trent Paschal. But this couldn't be, as Trent had an ankle monitor on, which showed that he was still at his parents' house, who had taken him in after posting bail. Confused, authorities would rush to the home, where rather than finding Trent, they would instead find his ankle monitor, clipped in half and lying on the floor. It was Trent Paschal who had stolen that car, and not only was he armed and dangerous, but he was now officially on the run. The news was extremely concerning, not only for members of the community, but for Savannah's parents in particular, as during Savannah's murder, her own mother Shirley was present at the scene, leaving her with the possibility that Trent could come back to finish the job. But even more worrisome was the fact that Savannah's parents had become the guardians to Trent and Savannah's children, who were now left without parents. And with Trent on the loose, there was a very real chance that he could try and take his kids back, using whatever means necessary. But it wasn't just Savannah's parents who were left devastated by the news, as Trent's very own parents had now been put in a truly awful position. They were the ones who had paid for his release 3 separate times, which added up to a whopping $550,000. And with Trent on the run, his parents were set to lose all that money. To make matters worse, this was money that they allegedly didn't even have, and they were forced to use collateral as well when signing the contracts, which would also be taken from them due to Trent's behavior. And according to those close with the family, that collateral had included their very own house, meaning that with Trent gone, not only were his parents going to lose all their money, but they'd also be losing their home as well. the same home that they allowed Trent to stay in. So despite everything they did for him, Trent would just turn around and put them in a situation that would essentially make them homeless. With Trent now completely missing, all parties involved were searching desperately for him. As from the second he disappeared, his whereabouts were completely unknown, meaning that his next move was impossible to predict, a next move that to this day has yet to come. As since that moment Trent went on the run back in April, there has been no substantial updates on where he might be. At one point, U.S. Marshals believed there was a sighting in Green Bay, Wisconsin, though to this day nothing has come of it. And other than this, there's been no other reported sightings or clues as to where he might be. And for all intents and purposes, Trent has essentially dropped off the face of the earth. This is a situation I became aware of practically right after he had escaped, and since then I've been checking for news almost daily to see if there's been any sort of development, as I had a strong feeling that at some point the guilt that Trent must be feeling for basically ruining his parents' life would finally eat at him enough to turn himself in. But so far, nothing, which just further showcases how deeply narcissistic this man is. Something that was already on full display within his final video. And with Trent having completely vanished, the big fear now is that he is going to come after his children, whether it be today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now, which is something that Savannah's parents now have to live with on a daily basis, as they've even told the press that we're constantly on guard, constantly watching. It's high anxiety. It's been a very hard year. And until Trent is hopefully one day caught, they are sadly going to have to continue living with this fear. And given the way this case has gone so far, I can safely say that Trent Paschal's story is nowhere near over. Okay, so I have a last second update here. I had put off making this video for months because I've been waiting for a huge development to happen, and finally it did. And of course it happened right after I completely finished this video. But as it turns out, YouTube's missing killer isn't missing anymore. Just before the start of the new year, police in Marion County, Florida were alerted to a man matching Trent's description, who had been spotted in a nearby trailer park, with the caller noting that the man was still currently residing there within his van. Following the tip, authorities would gather evidence and eventually head to the area on January 3rd to confront this man in person and to see if it truly was Trent. The vehicle would quickly be located, where inside, a man would refuse to step out. With their weapons raised, police would knock on the window and yell at the man to surrender, when suddenly a single gunshot rang out from inside the van, followed by silence. Inside the vehicle, Trent Paschal is dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Looking back on Trent's first ever upload on YouTube, all the way back in 2014, is haunting. As in this moment, they were a happy family. How could anyone have imagined that things would end up here?
Accused of fatally shooting Savannah Paschal. Paschal fatally shot himself when sheriff's deputies arrived.
As nearly 8 years later, this little girl and her brother are now left without either of their parents, both of which having been taken away from them in the worst ways imaginable. It's truly one of the most awful stories to come from YouTube, as the collapse of this family was so sudden and so brutal. But at least we can find some peace in the fact that it's over now, and Trent is no longer here to cause any more pain. And instead, he'll only live on in infamy, just like the many other YouTube killers before him. A tragic story that this time has finally reached its end. I want to give a huge shout out to my gold tier patrons and my god tier patrons: Anarcho Queer 1994, Bazoo 42, Biznacker, Gray, Karen S, Daniel Bin, Donovan Aaron, Drew Spice, Manuel Cadena, Game Gamer, Jackie Rose 29, Jay Money, Catherine Ross, Lacey, Mark PH, Mycraft Ways, Nathan Backus, Quinn Key, Sam Lutfi, Skelly, Sub to Micro O, The Deck of Cards,
so many
Unblended
people, holy
Portion,
shit.
Trucky Doggo, Avert J2, and Zinsu Sensei.
Alright guys, I'll see you guys next video. Goodbye. Bada 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 bing, bada 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 boom. Bye. Love you guys.